It's time to test out Navigate on Autopilot with version 10, specifically 2019.32.12.2. This is the first time I've actually had a real problem with Autopilot changing lanes, and we'll get into that a little bit later, and resulted in kind of a mixed feeling on this version. The merge onto the highway, though it got a little close to the line again, I'd really like it to stay to the right side of the road on the on-ramp. It did a good job of merging with traffic, and no issues with the following lane changes. During this trip, the traffic was really heavy, and there was even some stop and go, which really tested the lane changing and determining which lane was best. Coming up, you'll see that it waits for another car to pass on the left side and then gets behind it. It seems to do pretty well with this when traffic is a little bit faster in one of the other two lanes, whether it's the left lane or merging back to the right, and then getting behind that car. Here the left lane slows down pretty considerably. It decides to move into the center lane, which with the delta and speed, seems like kind of a tricky turn, but it does seem to handle it pretty well in this situation, and this seems to be one of the improvements with this version. I don't recall it merging into the center lane quite so aggressively as it did on this test. One other vastly improved feature is when cars cut you off like this Prius just did. It previously would slam on the brakes pretty aggressively. Now it slows down pretty gradually. It allows that buffer to gain back up after you have a situation like that instead of braking hard. In fact, I'd say that is the best update with version 10 on the highway, is the fact that it brakes much more gradually and more appropriately. It again does a great job of detecting that the left lane is starting to move quicker, waits for a car to pass, and then gets into that left lane. Here it decides to move into the right lane because the left lane is slowing down substantially, and cars are coming up pretty quickly in the right lane, or the middle lane, as you can see, but it does a good job of predicting it. In a few minutes you'll see where it doesn't do a good job, which is something you have to keep a close eye on. Overall, it seems to be doing a better job of navigating traffic. Here again, it picks the correct lane where it's going a little bit faster. It again detects that the left lane is going slower pretty quickly and merges into the center lane again. So it's doing a pretty good job of snaking its way through traffic. One thing I've noticed is that it never seems to use the right lane, even if it's moving faster than other traffic, or even in general when you're just traveling down the highway. It seems to want to stick to the center lane and the left lane for passing. Obviously, passing in the right lane is dangerous and illegal in some locations, but in traffic you would think that it would take advantage of that right lane. Or when just traveling on the highway and it's open, staying in that right lane. Now in this stop and go traffic, one other update with version 10 is that it is much more aggressive from a stop to starting again, which is great. One other version 10 feature is getting to the side of the lane away from tractor trailers, which is really nice, but I didn't actually have it happen in this video. Now when it moves into this left lane, you'll see that this car actually slows down pretty aggressively. Previously it would have braked really hard, but in this situation it did a really good job of gently braking and then maintaining correct distance. And here comes the really scary moment. The left lane slows down again. It decides it wants to get into the middle lane like it's done previously. It allows these cars to pass. However, there's a tractor trailer coming up, and it detects that it's free. You can see I yanked the steering wheel back, and you can see there's the tractor trailer. That could have been a really bad situation. When looking at the side footage, if the car was continuing to go at the same speed, it would have been able to easily fit in that spot, but because the car in front of me slowed down very quickly, it seems to have tried to commit to that turn anyway, which was a bad move. This is just a reminder that this is an assistance tool. It is not an autonomous system, and you have to watch it closely. Here it's getting into the right lane, but this is because the exit is coming up, and it missed the pretty large gap there. A truck kind of pulled up on the right side. He was nice enough to give the space, and it finally moved over. Like the previous versions, it does a pretty good job of exiting the highway onto this off-ramp, and even gets into the correct lane at the end of the off-ramp. So overall, version 10 and this version 2019.32.12.2 is definitely a bit better. I think it needs a little bit of tweaking, moving from the left lane to the right lane, but I am glad to see that it is more aggressively looking at lane changes and gaps in traffic. It still leaves some gaps when it's moving faster, where there's openings that it could fit into, but maybe it's still a little further away from its exit. So still some improvements there, but overall version 10 is much improved. Also, the less aggressive braking when cars are cutting you off or coming to a stop is so much better. So that's it for this test loop, and we'll do another once we have another software update. Thanks for watching.